Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Egypt has opened a new front in the war against the Islamic State. On Monday, Egyptian warplanes bombed northeastern Libya after Cairo vowed to avenge the killing of 21 Coptic Christians, shown in an ISIS video. Egypt says it hit ISIS sites, quote, precisely, but at least 7 civilians, including 3 children, were reportedly killed in the coastal city of Derna. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, meanwhile, called for a UN resolution to launch a global coalition to intervene in Libya.
What is going on in Libya could change this country into a breeding ground that will threaten the whole region, and not only Egypt. Egypt, the Mediterranean basin, and Europe have to deal with this problem because the mission was unaccomplished, was unfinished by our European friends. We abandoned the Libyan people as prisoners to extremist militias.
The U.S.-led coalition, meanwhile, launched 15 airstrikes against ISIS in Iraq and Syria on Sunday and Monday. In Pakistan, at least 7 people have been killed in the suicide bombing of a police headquarters in the eastern city of Lahore. A Taliban splinter group claimed responsibility, calling the attack revenge for Pakistan's execution of its colleagues. In breaking news from eastern Ukraine, Russian-backed separatists claim to have seized control of the key city of Debaltseve. Fierce fighting has raged in the area despite a ceasefire agreement. Talks between Greece and its European creditors have collapsed amidst disagreement over the future of German-backed austerity. The Greek Syriza party was elected on a promise to roll back the devastating austerity measures in Greece's international bailout. At talks in Brussels, Greek negotiators rejected a deal to extend the terms of the current bailout. Greek Finance Minister Yanis Varoufakis said he had tried to negotiate.
We were offering to refrain from effectively implementing our own program, the program that we were elected to implement, for a period of 6 months. And all we were getting back was a nebulous promise of some flexibility that was never specified. Under those circumstances, ladies and gentlemen, it proved impossible for the Greek government, despite our infinite goodwill, to sign the offered communiqué. And so the discussions continue.
The breakdown has raised fears Greece may be on the verge of leaving the Eurozone. The talks in Brussels came after some 20,000 people rallied in Athens to support Syriza's stance against austerity. Later in the broadcast, we'll speak with the leader of the anti-austerity party in Spain, Pablo Iglesias. A CSX train carrying over 100 cars of crude oil has derailed in West Virginia, sending a massive fireball into the sky and forcing 1,000 people to evacuate. Governor Earl Ray Tomblin has declared a state of emergency. At least 14 tankers and a house caught on fire, and at least 1 car went into the Kanawha River, where it was leaking oil. The train was transporting oil from the Bakken Shale in North Dakota, where a fracking boom has increased oil by rail shipments more than 4,000% in recent years. The incident came after another oil train derailed in Ontario, Canada, Saturday night, sparking a fire that was still burning on Monday. Secretary of Labor Tom Perez is due in California today for talks aimed at ending a contract dispute between shipping companies and union dock workers. For days, the shipping firms have partially shut down activity at 29 West Coast ports, handling nearly half of all U.S. maritime trade, after accusing workers of waging a slowdown. But union officials deny the slowdown and blame backups on the companies. The dispute has left dozens of container ships idling off the coast. A federal judge in Texas has blocked President Obama's executive actions on immigration. In November, Obama outlined programs aimed at providing relief from deportation to as many as 5 million people. But Texas and 25 other states sued to oppose the measures. 2 days before the first of the programs was due to start taking applications, Judge Andrew Hanen blocked them. A new probe finds the National Security Agency has embedded spying devices deep inside hard drives in computers around the world. The Russian firm Kaspersky Lab says it uncovered the spyware in personal computers across 30 countries, from Iran, Russia, Pakistan, and Libya to China, Belgium, Ecuador, and the United States. The targets include government institutions, oil and gas firms, Islamic activists and scholars, and the media. Hundreds of people gathered at the Danish embassy in Paris to express solidarity with Denmark over the weekend attacks on a free speech event and a synagogue. The Danish ambassador to France, Anna Dorte Riggelsson, said the feelings are similar to those that followed last month's attacks on Charlie Hebdo magazine in Paris.
It's really moving because what I feel is that everyone feels Danish, like we all felt French. Charlie, cop, Jew. And this solidarity that's almost physical and corporeal is very, very important for my country, for my people, because today we are in mourning.
Danish authorities have arrested 2 people accused of assisting the Copenhagen gunman, Omar Abdelhamid El Hussein, who was shot dead by police. In the U.S., a North Carolina grand jury has indicted Craig Hicks on 3 counts of murder for killing 3 Muslim students in Chapel Hill. Police have claimed the shooting stemmed from a parking dispute, but the victim's family has said it was clearly a hate crime. In a statement, Hada Wad, head of the Council on American Islamic Relations, said, quote, "This case is quickly becoming a touchstone for the American Muslim community's sense of security and inclusion." Authorities in Houston, Texas, have arrested a homeless man for setting a fire at an Islamic center last week. Officials say Darrell Ferguson approached officers and admitted to starting the fire. He told reporters it was an accident. In Detroit, a federal judge has rejected a bid for a new trial from a Palestinian activist convicted of immigration fraud. Rasmia Oda was found guilty of concealing her conviction on bombing charges by an Israeli military court more than 40 years ago. She says her confession to the bombings was obtained through torture and sexual assault in Israeli custody. Supporters say she was targeted by U.S. authorities because of her prominent support for Palestinian liberation. She faces up to 10 years in prison and deportation at her sentencing next month. To hear about her story, you can go to our website at democracynow.org. The decision comes just days after the Israeli Supreme Court rejected an appeal from the family of Rachel Corrie, the U.S. activist crushed to death by an Israeli army bulldozer in Gaza nearly 12 years ago, as she tried to protect a Palestinian home from demolition. Rachel Corrie's parents had sued the Israeli Ministry of Defense for a symbolic $1 in damages, but a lower court cleared the military of responsibility, saying Rachel Corrie's death had taken place in a war zone. Last week, the Supreme Court upheld that decision. The Corrie family said in a statement, quote, "We'd hoped for a different outcome, though we have come to see through this experience how deeply all of Israel's institutions are implicated in the impunity enjoyed by the Israeli military," they said. Amnesty International has renewed its call for Louisiana to release one of the longest-serving U.S. prisoners in solitary confinement. Former Black Panther Albert Woodfox's conviction has been overturned 3 times, and in November, an appeals court upheld the latest court order for his release. But last week, a Louisiana grand jury re-indicted Woodfox for the 1972 murder of a prison guard. He and the late Herman Wallace, another member of the so-called Angola Three, said they were framed for their political activism. In a statement, Amnesty International called for Louisiana Attorney General Buddy Caldwell to, quote, "stop pursuing a campaign of vengeance by trying to re-indict a man who's already spent more than 4 decades in cruel confinement after a legal process tainted with flaws," unquote. Albert Woodfox turns 68 this Thursday. And Oregon Governor John Kitzhaber is preparing for his final day in office Wednesday, after announcing he would step down amidst a public corruption probe. Since Oregon does not have a lieutenant governor, Secretary of State Kate Brown will take his place, becoming the first openly bisexual governor in U.S. history. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Aaron Maté. Welcome to our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.